Here I'm going to look at the project panel, and to speed this up, I've already loaded up some movie clips. Only a couple, but it'll do for what we want at the moment. In fact, these two we've glanced at in previous tutorials. By the way, you'll have probably noticed I've enlarged the Premiere Pro footprint, just so that we can see things better. Anyway, as we have seen a few times already, here is our project panel, and by default it's down here on the bottom left of our screen, but as I've said, I've resized everything for this tutorial. However, previously, when we have looked at the project panel, it was a small area down at the bottom left. That said, it was only down at the bottom left if you are using the default editing workspace. When we looked at using workspaces earlier, you'll probably remember we looked at a previous version of Premiere Pro, and that meant the project panel was at the top left rather than the bottom left here. Anyway, just as a definition recap, the project panel allows us to see all the assets that we are using within our project. Now, these assets aren't necessarily going to be used, but we bring them in so that we can assess their suitability. Now, by default, we don't see the project panel's preview area to enable us to see some small thumbnails just above, in the same way as we've seen previously in this course. But at the moment, as I say, by default, we don't see the project panel's preview area when we are looking at the project panel down here. But if we do want to see it, then come up here over to this panel menu, click on it, drop down, and then roll down to here and click on Preview Area. Now, just before we do, notice the thumbnail option there as well. We're going to be using that later, although I suspect at this screen resolution, the flyout might go off our screen slightly. So that's why I'm just pointing it out that it's here. Anyway, now we see this little viewing area, this preview area, that will populate with whatever asset that we click on. Okay, now I'm going to take this away from view for the moment, so I'll click on here once more and drop down to preview area, and that removes it from sight. Now, I've done that because in a moment we're going to be looking at the project panel in what's known as full screen view. So, rather than being cramped here, down in the bottom left corner, although we have enlarged it for this tutorial, what will happen is we'll fill the whole of our screen. In fact, we may as well do that now. So, come back over to the panel menu, click for the drop down, and then roll down to this option, Maximize Frame. Notice the shortcut there? Okay, now clicking on here fills the whole of our user interface with the project panel. Incidentally, you can do this with any of the panels, but I'm just showing you how this works with the project panel. And now we get to see all the different elements of information about our file. For example, there's the name column, we've got a label column, we've got a frame rate column, media start, media end, and media duration. Now you might need to horizontally scroll across to access all these fields. By the way, this sometimes confuses people. The video in and the video out points, in that these are slightly different in that these often register a different reading than to the video duration. The video duration being slightly different to the media duration because the media duration is the length of the pristine clip, the original clip, but the video duration indicates how much of that clip we have used. We might have an original clip that lasts 60 seconds, but within our project, once we've analysed it and trimmed it, we might only use 15 seconds of it. So that's why you'll see a slightly different numerical reading between these columns. Now, the names of these movie files aren't exactly that helpful, simply being called by numbers. I should really have taken my own advice and batch renamed them using Adobe's Bridge or Lightroom. Anyway, I haven't, so if I wanted to rename, I'd have to do this manually here, one by one. So that's what I'll do. I'll change this first clip and rename it to Beach 1. Select it first of all, and then select it again. And then with our second clip, I'll do the same thing, but this time I'll change the name of this and change it to Beach 2. Now, even though I've just been able to rename these two clips because I knew which one is which, it would be helpful, I'm sure you'll agree, if we saw a thumbnail next to our video name, just in case we've got 30 or 40 or 50 different clips. There's practically no way I'd remember which was which unless I could see a thumbnail. So, therefore, we need to be able to turn the thumbnail view on. Remember I pointed this out at the beginning of this tutorial? Well, this is possible over here again. If it's not activated by default, you can switch it on like this. Click on the panel menu drop down again, and then roll down. As I say, you'll not see the flyout, but it's there, and you'll be able to see the option that allows us to turn on the thumbnail view. Okay, so now my thumbnails are switched on, but even so, I can only just about see them at this screen resolution. So if I wanted to enlarge them, simply come down to the zoom button down here and enlarge our thumbnail view. Okay, so they are that little bit bigger. But if I wanted to see them bigger still, then the best way is to come down here and click on the second button along so that I can see my assets in icon view rather than list view. And immediately, as you can see, my thumbnails are displayed at a higher resolution. But once more, if I want to increase the size even further, then click on the zoom button here so that I zoom into a size that is suitable for my eyes. This might be too large, but as you can see, you can adjust as necessary. Okay, so that's the project panel and what we can do with it. So I'm going to leave it here for the moment, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.